So, David is here for Talking Points. I was on this programme 3 weeks ago, and I think one of the talking points was field sizes, particularly with Cheltenham in mind. A couple of pretty small fields, but, you know, it's being seen around and about Doncaster yesterday. It was certainly seen. Yeah,
and that's it. It's happening now early in the flat season, the Spring Mile. Consolation race for the Lincoln, 9 runners. It technically couldn't have been run because it didn't meet the minimum field requirements. It was given special permission to be staged, and that's staggering because you used to think of that as a completely full race. And at the jumps racing on Wednesday, I think there were 20 races across 3 meetings. 2 of them had double figure fields. Now, this isn't an issue that's going to go away. Richard Fahey, in his first column for us, mentioned that of his horses...
His column on Sporting Life.
His column on another one now. Mullins is coming as well, we're laughing. But he mentioned he'd lost Space Traveller. Toro Strike, Hong Kong Harry had been sold or moved to race abroad. And this is happening everywhere now. These horses of that bracket are so attractive to overseas buyers, or the programmes are so more valuable to owners over there.
Magic word, they're valuable.
Valuable, that they're now being attracted, or that they're being bought to go and race for the bigger purses. It's leaving holes everywhere. And if we're not filling up a Spring Mile, now it might just be a one-off. We might just come to all the big handicaps now, the consolation races, and they're full, and we'll just say there didn't happen to be that many mile handicappers ready for Doncaster. But on the back of the jump season, on the back of what we're seeing day in, day out, it should be ringing alarm bells.
Jumping-wise, the weather has clearly played a part, hasn't it? It was a mild winter. Can you remember a meeting being abandoned this?
No.
I can. Obviously, a couple have been, but very, very few. So clearly, the programme remains the same, despite the weather being good, so less cancellations.
Yeah. But we haven't got the horse population to support the fixture list at the minute. I mean, that's the problem. There's so many fixtures and not enough horses in training to...
And did you see the quote from the National Trainers Federation, the NTF, this week? Its new chief executive using a word, over-catered for.
Yeah.
So, and he was basically saying... he feels the fixture list, or the horse population is over-catered for by the fixture list, and maybe there are some hard decisions to take.
I think there's got to be. It's going to come to a head very soon, this, isn't it? It's not going away. I talked about this on my previous appearance on here. As you say, like you talked 3 weeks ago, 18 months ago, it's been discussed.
So what's next? Mullins' title. Now, as though he didn't win 10 races at the Cheltenham Festival, there is talk. And I thought this was going to be tittle-tattle talk of him perhaps challenging for the trainer's title, a sort of a throwaway line that turns into a headline. But it is more than that. He clearly is looking at Aintree and the other valuable races to see if he might end up as champion trainer on both sides of the Irish Sea.
Yeah, it definitely seems to have crossed his mind, doesn't it? It was a line in an interview with him that he admitted they were looking towards Aintree. Now, he did say, quite rightly, Punchestown's a big festival for them now after Cheltenham, which you completely understand. That's how it should be. But they're now taking a look at Aintree. He's got about 500,000 to fight.
Well, let's just look at the numbers. I was going to look at them for you. So Paul Nicholls leads at the moment in the table, which is judged by prize money, 2.148 million. Nicky Henderson just over 2 million. Dan Skelton 1.8 million. Willie 1.569, just in front of Venetia Williams.
Yeah, I think he's got to win the Grand National, as well as some other big prizes to have a realistic chance of winning. I mean, Allaho could come over for the 2.5 mile. I think off the top of my head that looks a good fit for him, and he's got plenty of novice hurdlers, novice chasers to go pot hunting at Aintree if it's something that he wishes to do. My mind goes back, you know, 5 or 6 years ago when he was in a position to do so and had a go.
2015-16.
2015-16, he left Aintree 200,000 in front of Paul Nicholls and still didn't get the job done. Nicholls gets to finish strongly enough at Sandown on the...
Well, it's clearly hard, isn't it? Because it's not as though the others are standing still.
And I think the difference this year as well is that Paul kept his powder dry for Aintree because of the ground at Cheltenham, but other decisions. Dan's got an eye on this, quite rightly, on this title. Nicky's not going to be thinking he can't win it either, so there's going to be a lot of...
And the way Venetia's finishing, she could easily finish with a
Unbelievable.
rattle.
What a season she's having. And, I mean, pre-Cheltenham, the virus, that suddenly disappeared, hasn't it? A fantastic festival. It's great to see the trainer's title coming down as it is to the wire, but great that Willett is even thinking about sending a few more horses to Aintree.
And it would be quite something. Vincent O'Brien was the champion trainer both sides of the Irish Sea during the 1950s, twice in Britain. To do it, though I do remember once when Paul Nicholls was going very well in Ireland, they talked about him perhaps being champion trainer over there, but it would be quite something.
I mean, you've just summed it up perfectly, following in the footsteps of Vincent O'Brien, and there's very, very few people who could do that. It'd be a phenomenal achievement. Aidan's done it regularly on the flat, but jumping-wise, Vincent, the last one, there's some story.
congratulations at stopping practically as the bell
Thank
rang
you.
there. Right, we're going to start the clock on this one, which is 2023 festival prices. Gosh, are people buying tickets already for 2023?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? There was talk that there's a price increase at Cheltenham between £5 and £10 on the enclosures for next year at Cheltenham, and it sparked debate, as you would expect, because Dave Yates and Nick dealt with the on-course prices last time around food and drink at the festival, and do people feel they're going to be getting value for money? Well, ultimately what will happen is racegoers will vote with their feet, and the suspicion is that they will want to go to Cheltenham Festival and will pay the increased prices. But where this will become very interesting is if the talk of the 5-day festival does come to fruition, and not for next year but potentially 2024 onwards, and the talk then is we only need 2 extra races to go to 5 days, but that's then reducing the 7 race cards to 6 race cards. Would people be thinking they're getting value for money for a 6 race programme at the current prices?
Now, I've got to challenge you on this. So, do you think people could vote for their feet and not go? I know one or two people have said this on Twitter. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I was talking to the chief executive of Hereford the other day and said, I'm not going to Cheltenham anymore. I'm going to stick with good old Hereford where the prices are much more sensible. It's a few people on social media. I can't believe thousands of people are going to walk away because they say, it's too expensive. All these things are expensive.
They are. It's the ultimate test, though, isn't it? It's the numbers through the gate. I mean, they had unprecedented sales this year. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Thursday to sell out. I mean, it used to be one of the quieter days, didn't it, the Thursday? And that was a sellout ahead of Gold Cup Day as well. The numbers this year were absolutely fantastic. Forgetting Jockey Club Racecourses as well. They behind closed doors last year. Financially, they need money into the business. They're trying to shore up prize money as well. There's all the challenges that racecourses are facing. I don't think it would be a problem this year. I think people will pay the increased prize money, the increased attendance money. But I think it does become a problem when you go, if you do go 5 days, reduce it to a 6-race programme, to argue that upwards of £100, etc., is value for money for 6 races, even if it's Cheltenham. I think that does become more difficult.
I'm sure there are marketing people who've got some other stats which disprove that. But I hear what you say. All I've done in terms of 2023 is look up the dates so far, and they are the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th, yeah, only 4. 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of March next year for the festival. I must say, my usual hotel chain of choice was trying to charge £800 a night for a pretty average service in the middle of Cheltenham. That did make me vote with my feet in that I didn't go there.
Those prices were staggering, weren't they?
They were, absolutely. On-course schooling. Right, Henrietta Knight has spoken a lot lately.
She's not missing, is she?
She's been in this studio.
Yeah.
She's been giving various interviews as well. And there's what I think is known as a wide-ranging interview, I think with Peter Thomas in the Racing Post newspaper today. And there's lots of good stuff in there, lots of ideas. One of them, and this is the one that leads into this, is on-course schooling. So racecourses using its facilities to help in the preparation and training of horses.
Yes, a fascinating interview with Henrietta, and her point here is that this happens regularly in Ireland, that the connections pay £100 to go to a schooling bumper or a schooling novice hurdle to give their horse experience of competing against other horses outside of the glare of race day. And her argument is it makes that the Irish horses are more battle-hardened, more streetwise, more accustomed to what's to come than the British horses are, and it gives them an edge. I mean, Henrietta would know more than me about that, about the preparing of young horses.
But it makes sense, doesn't it? If you go and actually take part in some kind of race that doesn't matter as a race, then clearly
it's experience.
It's all experience. Yeah.
I don't know if British trainers are trying to do it, if it's something they put on their wish list or something they would like to do. Henrietta mentions the tracks that don't race through the winter.
Worcester got a mention.
Worcester got a mention.
Yes, other than Newton. No,
Newton Abbott was one. Yeah. So she mentioned potential venues, but I don't believe that we're not as competitive as we once were right now because our young horses aren't being given this
but if it's
grounding.
If it's all a puzzle, if training racehorses is a puzzle and you need all the pieces to come together, could that not be quite an important, quite a significant part of the puzzle?
It could be, but it's just not something I've seen anybody else mention at any stage when discussing
well, she's thinking it's
a
wide-ranging
It's fantastic.
interview.
She's opened up a wide-ranging interview. She's opened up a fantastic point of view. I've never heard Paul Nicholls say that's the reason he's got fewer big horses anymore. I've never heard Alan King say it.
Because people definitely go to Newcastle, obviously the all weather, and Nicky Henderson always takes horses to Kempton. And I think Newbury does a bit of hosting. I remember going to Kelso 25 years ago, and there were dozens of horses galloping after racing. But maybe with the difficulties over ground and regulations over ground, it's just become impossible in some places.
Like Henrietta said, if you've got 600 horses at £100 each to do it, then there's a financial incentive as well for the racecourses.
Right. Aintree versus Ayr. In fact, this category should be Ayr versus Aintree because chronologically that is the way it's working this year. I think it happened in the 1880s.
Is that right?
And it's Easter's fault.
Yeah, it is Easter's fault.
Or is it racing's fault for not racing its big festivals at Easter? But that's not what we're discussing. It is horses that are on the cusp of getting a run in the Grand National at Aintree. Are they going to get a run, or should they take their chance at Ayr instead in the Scottish Grand National next Saturday?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Obviously, Aintree wanted that extra week between Cheltenham to get the Grade 1 horses there for their big races as well. And Ayr's moved. It's before the Grand National. There's the example in the Racing Post this week, 3 or 4 horses who are 40 to 45, 46, 47 at the minute, needing horses to
including my fancy, inevitably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my very fancy anti-post voucher.
Which one's that?
Fortescue.
Oh, well, I mean, and Black Lion's one of them, who was the best British horse last year's Grand National. He needs 6 to come out. Now, the problem they've got is that the 6A decks for the Scottish Grand National come out on Monday, tomorrow. So, and then the Grand National's not till the week after. So they're going to be declaring on Thursday without any more clarity other than phone calls, I presume, to the likes of Gordon.
Do you think the authorities might be sort of sympathetic if they find themselves in a little bit of a pickle? They declare for one and then suddenly it becomes apparent they will be able to get into the other one?
I don't think it would be apparent by, once you've declared, but even by the Saturday, I don't think you would know.
Then say a couple were scratched.
That's what needs it. It's a scratchings, isn't it? Yeah. I think the authorities would then have to understand why they'd taken that decision. But I do feel for connections. It's a real big roll of the dice, isn't it? And you can't win in so much. If you go for the Scottish National and you would have got in at Aintree, the owners will be thinking, my goodness, that was my one shot at the greatest race in the world gone. But if you miss Ayr, decide, no, let's risk it, let's roll the dice, let's wait for Aintree and don't get in, then you've missed out on a potential big payday in Scotland as well. I don't envy the trainers and connections.
And there's a chance that you diverted around Cheltenham because you thought that you might get in one of the others.
Lots of horses have, haven't they?
Fortescue.
Fortescue won, and you're looking at that list. If the scratches don't come, I'm sure they'll be in touch with, as I say, Gordon, Willie, the people who are potentially mob-handed to find out exactly what their plans are. But the last update I saw, they wanted to run everything they could run.
And we will be talking further about the Coral Scottish Grand National taking place next Saturday, live on Racing TV a little bit later on. A trainer who told me on Friday he would win. Well, unfortunately, he's got 2 fancies. Right, so Aintree versus Ayr, Ayr versus Aintree takes us on to new PGA executive from next month. Ian McMahon used to be a footballer for Oldham and Rochdale, I think. Has been involved in golf and is now in the hot seat that has been vacated by Paul Struthers. Yeah,
an interesting background, hasn't he, when you look at the appointment. I think if you looked at the roles in racing, BHA, Chief Exec, PGA, Chief Exec, right now they're hot potatoes, aren't they, at everything that's been going on. He's going to walk into the in-train. Now, some things we're going to move on have been sorted. Jockey's insurance, we're going to come on to others at the minute, but there's lots of challenges still facing.
Well, it's reputational, isn't it?
It is reputational.
Yeah.
And this week we've got the Robbie Dunn appeal against a punishment handed down for the bullying of Bryony Foster.
Yeah, that starts on Wednesday.
And that sort of opened the Pandora's box of the split weighing room, the evidence that came out at the initial hearing then. And it portrayed this picture. We've always thought, I was brought up thinking everything was tight-knit in the weighing room. It was a tight group of people who went out and they were friends because they knew the risks they were going through each other. And then that has been sort of blown apart in recent years. Now, I think it's mending that. It's reputational. There's a big PR task now about selling the weighing room, what goes in there to the racing public and to the wider sporting public. We've got some incredible jockeys riding, some incredible stories. I mean, I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and she's looking for role models.
Who's her hero, apart from yourself?
Well, myself at the minute, but she's got Rachel Blackmore now to be able to sell the sport. So it's fantastic.
We were talking about jockey heroes.
No. So my value day sadly over.
Really likes Rachel Blackmore.
Yeah, and that's where you start getting to. And there's so phenomenal good racing stories out there now to try to sell. We've got this appeal on Wednesday, and whatever happens there, it's going to be another turbulent few days, no doubt, for the weighing room and for racing. But the PGA, I think it's a PR and it's a selling, it's reputation. Restore the reputation, restore the weighing room. Let's see a unified approach. Workplaces they're unrecognisable. General workplace are unrecognisable from 20 years ago. And I think he's coming in now at a time where, there's challenges. There's a lot in that inbox when he sits down, but it's all achievable. It's all doable. And I wish him all the best in doing it as well.
A late member of my family used to say, if you take over a pub, you don't want to take over a successful pub. You want to take over one that's got a couple of issues because they're there for you to try and sort out. And good luck to Ian McMahon as he tries to do that from next month. Talking of jockeys, both jump jockeys and flat jockeys are getting a pay rise.
Yeah, quite rightly too, as well, isn't it? Near 12% in both cases. And we all know the cost of living crisis that's going on and is upcoming. You imagine the jockeys, and we're not talking like your Dettoris of the world who are bringing in big prize money and topping up that way. The journeymen jockeys who go up and down the country for 1-2 rides sometimes. You imagine what their travel costs have become over.
Did you see the figures in the Racing Post for the income?
Yes.
For your, in inverted commas, journeyman or indeed journeywoman jockey? Very low, they are very low figures.
Very, very low figures, aren't they? And it's not a sustainable career at those numbers. So, fingers crossed, this will make a difference. It's 12%. It's £15.
Yeah, let's just give the numbers on terms of the fees. So, jump jockeys are going up £20 to 194.63. So that's a rise of 11.5%. Flat jockeys to 142.90, going up £15. And that's just over 11% as well.
Yeah.
Just under 12%.
And obviously they've got their money to come out for the valets, for the fuel, their travel costs. It all adds up. It's not a rich living for the vast majority of the people who are riding. And I demand it will come as some relief, this. It's just I mean, we've touched upon it. We're trying to go straight back to the top, but the field sizes. The jockeys have been some of the biggest sufferers with these.
But the one meeting rule, I think, has been quite interesting, hasn't it?
That's true. And that was brought in for jockey welfare reasons. And I know some of the more successful jockeys are against it because it cuts down on their opportunities. But if it has opened it up for one or two other jockeys, that's fantastic.
And ultimately, don't you think, actually, they think it would have been lovely to have flown from Lingfield to Carlisle, but actually, I feel better that we're not rushing around like nobody's business.
I'd imagine it would only be the likes of O'Sheen and William last winter who would have been last autumn thinking, I could maybe sat on 2 or 3 winners there who might have felt it. But yeah, it's welcome news, that jockey pay rise. It really is.
And insurance, there's a bit of news on insurance
as
well.
A new deal has been agreed with the insurance we were worried about. That's now in place. So they are 2 positive developments for the jockeys and, as we say, changing times there.
Well, you know what it's like filling up with fuel at the moment. So
Staggering,
if you're going to Carlisle for one, or you're coming from the north to Newton Abbot for one,
and having travelled to the stable to ride out in the morning, and it's an expensive occupation.
Excellent. And those were the talking points on Luck on Sunday.